Imagine a world without instant communication, no live updates, no breaking news alerts, no constant stream of information. In the summer of 1914, as the drums of war beat louder across Europe, that was the reality for most people. News traveled at the speed of newspapers and telegrams, often delayed by censorship and the fog of war. For families with loved ones on the front lines, anxiety and uncertainty were constant companions. Letters, often censored and delayed, provided the only lifeline to the trenches. The world held its breath, waiting for news, hoping for the best, but fearing the worst. This context, this slower pace of life and information, is crucial to understanding the impact of World War I. This wasn't a war that unfolded in real time on our screens. It was a war experienced through delayed dispatches, rumors, and the agonizing silence between. This was a different world on the cusp of radical change. World War I wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a clash of technologies. The Industrial Revolution fueled a terrifying evolution in the tools of war. This was the first truly industrial war. Tanks, lumbering behemoths of steel, were deployed for the first time. Airplanes, once a novelty, took to the skies as instruments of reconnaissance and combat. The realization of death itself was the most chilling advancement. Machine guns, artillery, and poison gas transformed the battlefield into a charnel house. Now let's talk about the Battle of the Somme, which raged for over 4 months in 1916, stands as a chilling testament to the futility and brutality of World War I. On the first day of the battle alone, July 1st, the British Army suffered nearly 60,000 casualties, making it the bloodiest day in the history of the British military. The battle was intended to be a decisive breakthrough, but instead it descended into a brutal war of attrition. Wave after wave of British, French, and German soldiers were thrown into the meat grinder, their sacrifices achieving little more than yards of mud. The Somme became synonymous with the horrors of trench warfare, the relentless artillery bombardments, the charges into no man's land, the stench of death and decay that permeated everything. The battle left an indelible scar on the national psyche of all the nations involved. It shattered the illusion of a quick and decisive victory, and it exposed the terrible human cost of a war that seemed to have no end in sight. After that, the fortress city becomes a symbol of attrition. If the Somme epitomized the horrors of trench warfare, the Battle of Verdun, also in 1916, became a symbol of attrition, a grinding struggle for survival. The Germans, seeking to bleed France white, launched a massive offensive against the fortress city of Verdun, hoping to break the French army's will to fight. The French, determined to hold on to the city that had become a symbol of national pride, poured everything they had into its defense. Verdun became a battle of endurance, a test of each side's willingness to absorb unimaginable losses. The fighting raged for months, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. By the time the battle ended in December 1916, both sides had suffered hundreds of thousands of casualties. Verdun had become a synonym for the stubbornness and sacrifice of the French army, but also for the sheer brutality and pointlessness of the war itself. The lost generation and a world transformed. World War I didn't just claim millions of lives, it shattered a generation. The young men who had marched off to war with enthusiasm returned, if they returned at all, physically and emotionally scarred. They had witnessed horrors that defied description. The war also had a profound impact on civilians. Families were torn apart, economies shattered, and social structures altered. Women began to demand greater rights and opportunities. A new, uncertain world emerged from the ashes. The seeds of future conflicts in a changed world. World War I was a watershed moment in human history. It marked the end of an era, the end of the old world order, and the beginning of a new, uncertain age. The war's legacy is complex and multifaceted, a tangled web of unintended consequences and unforeseen outcomes. It was a war that shattered empires, birthed new ideologies, and sowed the seeds of future conflicts. It was a war that tested the limits of human endurance and left an indelible mark on the consciousness of humankind, and it is a war that continues to resonate today, a stark reminder of the human capacity for both good and evil. The world that emerged from the ashes of World War I was a very different place from the one that had existed before 1914. It was a world forever changed, haunted by the ghosts of millions dead and the shattered dreams of a generation.